Good afternoon, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started. We may have a few people trickle in. Highly competitive time slot. So for those of you who decided to come here instead of either do lunch or go watch the AFC Divisional Playoff game, I thank you. Maybe we can get through this pretty quickly, have some Q&A, and have time to catch the second half. My name is Tony Pantano. I'm the CEO of Imwave. And today I want to talk a little bit about how you can work, how search affiliates can work with an in-house search team. There's a lot of misconceptions about how those two can work together, whether they overlap, whether they compete, whether they cause problems. And so we decided that we wanted to come up here and we wanted to talk a little bit about our experiences. And I think some of the things that get missed in these kinds of sessions are real-world examples. So while I can't share with you specifically who we've done certain things with, I wanted to take some time and I wanted to actually tell you about experiences that we've had, things that we've actually put into practice and how they've worked out. So instead of having supposition and speculation, we can actually work on fact. And I think that's the big thing with our industry. So the first thing I'll say is that some of you are going to agree with what I say. And that's okay. Some of you are just going to think that I'm crazy. And if we have any merchants in the room, a lot of you might say, this doesn't apply to my program. That's okay, because in this space, there's a million different ways to approach it. There's a lot of different things you can do. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, and there's no one size fits all. So these are some specific examples, how they fit, how they worked, and the results. If we can look at those and think about how they might help your program or how they might help your affiliate business, that's great. So what we're going to talk about is a little bit is, what are the perceived issues and concerns? What are the comments that are out there? What are people talking about? What are they saying? Why are they deciding to do or not to do certain things with their search terms and conditions? Then we're going to look at what really happens. Is that reality? Or is it different? Then we're going to talk about how PPC with a search affiliate could help your program. And lastly, I'm going to get into some examples of things that we've seen and how they've worked. I don't have it on the end here, but I will leave some time for Q&A. I'm going to go through this. It's not a real long presentation, so if anybody has any questions, we'll wait till the end, if you don't mind, and we'll go from there. So what really puts internal search teams at odds with affiliates? In some organizations, there really isn't any conflict. They work together well, everybody generates incremental business, and everything's great. In some organizations, there's no relationship. The internal search team just doesn't allow or doesn't work with search affiliates, and the merchant doesn't allow them into their program. The majority are somewhere in between. I think that the main reason that there's these differences are different goals between divisions. You have different incentives. And then you have different issues about who's involved, who's making the decisions. Is there one person who oversees both internal search and affiliate programs, or do you have two separate managers who are both trying to reach their objectives? That can make the issue on your inside. So if you're running a search program in-house, what are some of the issues that you're going to hear? Well, you're going to hear things, and we've heard it at this conference before, and we hear it all the time. We need or we want to protect our brand. So I asked the question, what exactly does that mean? What does protecting the brand mean? We throw it out all the time. We say it an awful lot, but what do we really mean by that? And I think there's some people that don't ask that question. So let's really dig into it. Now, a lot of our businesses have marketing agencies that do print, they do radio, they do television, they do all sorts of things to promote our brand, and we entrust them with the brand. We entrust them to go out and promote our business. And yet, when we talk about the affiliate side and we talk about search marketing, we're afraid almost to have those same kind of relationships. The question is why? We'll look at that. Allowing affiliates to use our display URL will increase our PPC costs. Hear that all the time. Is it true? Is it not true? Is it something we say just so we don't have to deal with changing our terms and conditions? Let's find out. We have an agency and they cover all of our keywords, and we have all the coverage that we need on our branded terms. Hear that an awful lot too. We'll take a look at that. So brand protection. Let me first say this. I'm not going to stand up here and say that you should have a wide open search policy for affiliates. We are advocates of strong terms and conditions. I think you need to have that, and that's how you get the coverage and the protection on your brand. However, there's a lot of different ways that you can deal with that situation. You can have 1 to 3 trusted partners who are doing search for you. And that can actually be very beneficial in your program. The question is, how do we make that work? How do we sell it in? How do we get buy-in? How do we convince people that that'll happen? We'll look at that. Trusted partners, what does that mean exactly? A trusted partner is someone that you have a relationship with. So it's not necessarily an affiliate that you can't reach, you can't contact, you can't email. You know, we hear those stories all the time as well. If you're sending an email and somebody's not responding to you, may or may not be somebody you want to put on your list of trusted affiliates. But there are a number of affiliate partners in this industry who take their businesses very seriously. They treat it as their main source of income. They're full businesses. They're very responsive, and they will respond to you. These are the people you know you can get a hold of, email, telephone, however you want to, and that you can have a dialogue and a conversation. Once you build that dialogue and conversation, you build trust, which in my opinion is the foundation of the relationships in our business. So you have to look at that. Who are those people? Do I have 1, 2, or 3 of those in my program that I can try something with along these lines? Also, will they adhere to my brand guidelines? Many affiliates, if you tell them, simply tell them, what are the guidelines to protect your brand? What are your requirements? You're not allowed to use my name with coupon, or my name with cheap, or my name with something else. You're not allowed to sell certain terms. You're not allowed to discount me. You're not allowed to do certain things. If you have those brand guidelines, which I'm sure you do, pass them along. A trusted partner will take those and they will write their PPC copy and they will adhere to those guidelines. That's somebody you can work with. That's a trusted partner. So I skipped ahead and I forgot to make one statement, and I think it's abundantly important. Some of you out there are probably saying to yourself, sure, Tony, we get it. You're a search affiliate, and you're going to stand up here and you're going to tell us why we should use search affiliates because you have an agenda. Guess what? I do. The difference is what my agenda is probably a little bit different than what you're thinking it is. You know, my agenda is to create very strong relationships with my partners to generate mutually profitable campaigns. So I'm not telling you that search is going to be great for you. I'm not telling you it's going to work for every program. I'm telling you what we've seen, how it can work. We'll get to the examples and we'll talk about the conclusions that we can draw from it. So let's talk about display URL and direct linking. A lot of people see those as 2 separate things, and they're really just not. They're really the same thing, and a lot of that stems from the Google policy change a few years ago on their single URL serving issue, single URL display issue. It's called multiple things. Basically, Google has said, if you remember 3 or 4 years ago, you'd type a search in, you'd get your search results, and the 5 ads and the paid search side were all at the same URL. And Google said, that's just not a good user experience. We're going to change that. We're only going to show one URL. Well, a lot of people really took that, misunderstood it, and went to the complete opposite and have gone to this, no affiliate is allowed to use our URL. So there's some misconception, and then there's some problems that come into play. So let's look at an example, because I think that that will really help illustrate my point. So let's say an affiliate is not using your URL. You don't allow it. And let's say you pick a keyword term, and it doesn't matter what that term is. Let's just say it's a general term that you're bidding on. And you're bidding $1. So your affiliate is not bidding. Your competition is bidding, say, 49 cents. You're going to take top spot at 50 cents. That's your CPC. And before I have 6,000 hands go up in questions, yes, I know there are other factors that go into deciding who shows. You have things like quality score. You have things like click-through rate, the history on your campaigns. But let's pretend that all those things are equal, just for the sake of discussion. Because frankly, if your click-through rate on your ad copy is lower than the click-through rate of your affiliate's ads, you probably have another issue that you want to take a look at internally. So let's look at another example now. Let's say you force all of your affiliates to go to their own page, their own landing page, their own website first, before coming to you. Same example, same keyword. You're still bidding $1 for it. Now the merchant's bidding, or the affiliate's in the play, they're bidding 75 cents for it. Your competition's still bidding 49 cents. So what happens? You'll still take the top spot because you've decided that your max CPC is $1, but now you're going to pay, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. In this particular case, this is the direct linking example where we're using the same URL. My apologies. My slides got a little out of order here. So let me back up and make sure I may say this very clearly. In this example, you are using the merchant's URL. We're using the same URL and we're bidding on the same keyword. Okay? Sorry to confuse everybody. Does that make sense now? Okay. So the bid prices are still the same, $1, $75, and $49. In this case, you still take top spot at 50 cents. Why? That's because what Google will do is Google will look at all ads that have the same display URL first. They will decide based on click-through rate, quality, and bid price who should go next, who should get passed on. I'm going to get kicked out at 75 cents because presumably if we said quality score is not an issue, click-through rate's not an issue, we're just looking at bid price, I'm at 75, you're at $1. That means you go in against the competition at $1 against 49 cents. You still take 50 cents, top spot. So whether I was there or not, on your URL, same price to you, no increase. This is where I jumped ahead to, because it's the same example, but in a different scenario. In this case, what if you force the affiliate to use their own landing page or their own URL? Now that $1 and that 75 cents don't compete in a sort of pre-auction. They don't compete initially. They don't compete first. We're all in the general space competing for the same positions. So in this case, yes, you'll still take the top spot, but you're going to pay 76 cents for it because now you have to pay a penny higher than the affiliate. Now, is that bad? It might or it might not be, because in this case, you're going to take extra real estate. So what are your goals? What are you looking to do? What are you looking to accomplish? That's the big question. So yes, my costs will be higher in this scenario, but I might have 2 ads for my product instead of 1. This little diagram is something I threw together to just kind of illustrate, generically speaking, where the overlap could occur. You know, if you're working with a search affiliate, their expertise is in generating keywords. That's what your internal search team does. I don't believe that there's one group of people, whether it's an internal search team, one affiliate, any affiliate. I don't believe anybody can come up with the entire keyword universe for a single product. I just don't believe that that's true. I believe that there's areas that different people will focus on, and we've seen it. So in this particular example, we're showing where the overlap occurs. So in my example, if we were all using the same URL, and I was using a display URL for a merchant, the only place we would even, and this doesn't have a pointer or anything on it, but the only place we were really competing is where that arrow is in the middle. That's the only place where that whole issue of bidding would come up. Because to my right, where it's not overlapped, you will always show. To the left, the affiliate will always show because you're not there. So we're just talking about that subset. And to kind of get ahead of the question again, some of you say, okay, Tony, that's great, but I don't believe that the overlap is that small. I don't believe you, I'm not buying it, I believe the overlap is much bigger. Okay, let's pretend the overlap's huge. I still don't believe the overlap hits 100%. So, yes, in that middle section, we're going to compete a little bit more on same terms, but there's still that sliver where the search affiliate is covering keyword terms that you may or may not be on. So let's talk a little bit about what that really means. Typically, the overlap is very small. Might be bigger, as we saw, but it's usually very small. Google requires the display URL and the landing page to be the same. That's where some of the misconception comes in. That's why direct linking and use of display URL is the same. There used to be a time when you could put any display URL in your ad copy and you could send it to any destination you wanted to. It doesn't work that way anymore. Now, whatever is in your display URL in your Google ad, and I know I'm focusing on Google, but you know, that's the bulk of the traffic, let's be honest. If I'm sending that to merchant.com, when I click on that ad, I have to land on merchant.com. There could be a subdomain in front, could be any list of terms on the back, but it has to be that same URL or Google will shut it down. That's why direct linking and display URL are the same issue. The use of a display URL will rarely drive up costs for a merchant. That's counterintuitive to what the common conception is or the common feeling is in the market, but we've seen that with our examples. And a trusted affiliate will work within brand guidelines. If you're going to try this with somebody, and if you're going to test this with somebody, you're going to make sure that you're working with somebody who you do trust and who you do know. And they will follow the brand guidelines. And if they don't, you probably picked the wrong one. So let's talk a little bit about trademark and brand bidding. Another hot topic. There's no one-size-fits-all with this. There really isn't. You'll hear that there is, but there's not. The question is your brand well established first? We have to determine that. Of course, we all think our company's the top, the best, the number one, but let's really dig down into it. Is our brand well established? Do you have any budget restrictions on your internal search efforts? Does your internal search team have a limit on how much they can spend on PPC? Some of you might be sitting here with no budget or no limit and saying, well, that's crazy. Happens all the time. Happens a lot. Does your internal search team and agency have all the variations covered? You know, there's one sort of phrase that seems to be in every search terms and conditions that's written by some lawyer somewhere, and it just keeps to be, recycled over and over again. That trademarks and variations statement. It's the same sentence in every policy. I'm going to back up a second because I want to touch on number 3 a little bit more. Budget restrictions. There are many companies who run their PPC costs as an expense rather than a cost of sale. Now, I'm not an accountant. I'm not going to get into the differences of how that looks, but let's just think about that for a second. If you're running it as an expense, as a marketing expense, and things aren't meeting goal, generally, in the company, the first thing that starts to come down is we need to cut expenses. Where do we cut first? Well, we all know, anyone of us that have been in marketing for any period of time, know that marketing usually gets axed pretty early on in the process. So, what if my PPC budget ends on the 15th? I'm out of budget. My ads just turn off. And I know some of you are probably saying, that's crazy, Tony. That can't possibly happen. It does. It happens more than you think. So that needs to be a focus and a consideration. What do we do with that? How do we deal with it? So what about you taking your 1 to 3 top affiliates, search affiliates, trusted affiliates, and what if we said, okay, let's give them a cap. Here's our trademark terms. Here's the terms that we think are solid. They're our terms. We own them. We cover them. And we know we're bidding X on them. Let's say that X is $1. Well, the affiliate gets paid a certain percentage. You know what it is. The affiliate knows what it is. I know what my costs are on my search side. The chances that I can bid as high for your own term as you can are very small. I mean, you make more if you sell it yourself than if you sell it through me. You know what your cost to me is. So what if I say, I'm at $1 on my brand terms. Mr. Affiliate, I trust you. You've been with us for years. You can bid on my brand terms, but you can only bid 40 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents, whatever it is, somewhere below me. We know right away, based on the example earlier, that they're not going to show up in place of us. We also know that they're not going to increase our costs. So you say, okay, well, what good does that do then? If they're never going to show, why even have it there? Well, a couple of things, and it's counterintuitive, but I don't have to put negatives in for your search terms. Sometimes putting negatives in can be a little tricky. This way I don't have to do it, because all the terms are there, they're just capped at a certain amount. The second thing is, what if my budget goes to zero? What if my ads get turned off? What if something happens and my Google AdWords isn't functioning anymore? the credit card that we have on file with Google is maxed. Something along those lines. Weird, strange things that could happen. Who shows up when you're not there? Does the competitor that was in the 2 spot take number 1? Or do we backfill it with an affiliate who we trust, who is following our brand guidelines, and who is generating sales at a fixed cost per acquisition for us? We know what that fixed cost per acquisition is. So then we come back around, because I know everyone's thinking it, yeah, Tony, we have quality score, we have click-through rate, we have all those sorts of things. And yes, I understand that if you're showing up above us because you have a better click-through rate, I probably need to rework my ad copy, but it could happen. You're right. And if I stood here and said it wouldn't happen, then you'd know I was just full of it, because it could happen. The question is, what do you do when it happens? And the answer is, if you're dealing with a trusted partner, if you're dealing with somebody that you can IM, pick up the phone, email, and you get a response, and it doesn't go into the black hole oblivion of email, you set up these keyword removal agreements. And you say, anytime that you start showing up above me for whatever reason, maybe I lowered my bid and forgot to tell you. You contact those person. It's not 10 people. It's not 100 people. It's not 50 affiliates. It's 1 or 2 people. You get on the phone, you send them an IM, you send them an email and say, listen, on this keyword, you're now showing above me. Great, sorry. I'll go and change those bids right away. Anyone that's responsive and anyone that you would want as a trusted partner would make that change within an hour. So we'll talk a little bit about search overlap again. And the potential overlap on a search campaign and the use of branded keyword terms, unless you are confident that you have 24/7 coverage, 365 days a year for all of your terms, you could be missing clicks. Maybe, maybe not. I had somebody yesterday say, well, Tony, you know, if I'm not there, my organic listing's number 1. So it doesn't matter. Could be, but do you know? There's a lot of people that, and I know this sounds maybe not like something that's mainstream, but there are a lot of people that look to those paid ads. That's their source of information. That's where they believe that they're going to find the answers. They may or may not click on your organic listing. Just because you're number 1 organic and no one's in paid search doesn't mean you're going to get that click. Question, is it not? Don't know. But if you're missing clicks, there's a chance that your competition's getting those clicks. If your competition's taking those clicks, then that's incremental sales that you could be missing and losing. A good search affiliate will be able to backfill your space. They'll be able to cover terms that you're not on. They'll be able to cover the terms that you are on if and when you might not be there. And they'll be able to increase your reach for you. And those are all important concepts when you're building out your search, whether it's internal, whether it's your affiliate search, or whatever that might be. I touched on this, but let's go back and say it again. Commission rates, and I'm just going to read this because it's so important. Commission rates typically force affiliates to bid lower than you would for your internal search campaigns. In the example that we're going to get to later, we're going to talk about a real world that this occurred. And they said, you know, we'll give you a bid cap. And when he gave me the bid cap, I was astounded. I'm like, I wouldn't bid anywhere close to that amount. And we had that conversation. But the reality is, you know, I don't know if your program's 2%, 4%, 5%, $50 a lead, $100 a lead, whatever it is. We operate on a revenue per click model. What are we getting in commissions? What are we spending in expense? And what's the net? We're on a fixed CPA. You know what your cost is for me. I know what my revenue is from you. The chances that I can bid as high on the same terms as you are very, very small. The economics of it just make it very, very small. Could it happen? Absolutely. There's no certainty. But the chances are very slim. So analyze your CPA. What's your cost per acquisition? Your internal search team probably is operating on a cost per acquisition. They probably have a conversion rate that they're working with. They probably have a goal. They probably say, you know, we'll take as many sales as you can generate, but they have to be at this cost. But you also know what your CPA is on the affiliate side. So look at the costs and look at the conversion rates, and let's figure out where the overlap is. Let's figure out where we can generate some incremental business. Preventative measures, put them in place. Yes, have your strong terms and conditions. That doesn't preclude you from having one or two partners that you have contracts that go outside the normal terms and conditions. We sign non-disclosure agreements all the time. We sign them because we're sharing confidential information between the merchant. They're sharing with us their strategy. We shared with them our strategy. Plus, they don't necessarily want us to let people know that we have this side agreement with them, that we're operating outside of their terms and conditions with their permission. Let your trusted affiliates fill the potential gaps in bidding without increasing your costs. Generate those incremental sales. And have a keyword removal agreement up front. Listen, if you start showing up above us, we need to make sure that you're going to be responsive and you're going to deal with it and you're going to take it down. If they stop, if they don't, if they're not, you have recourse. You can end the arrangement. Now, I cringed because I really wanted to avoid this slide. I did. I even put it through, and Adam, my partner, said, "Did you really want to have that title on that slide?" And I said, "Yes, I did," because you come to all these presentations and everyone's got the long tail slide up. And everyone talks about the long tail. And the more I thought about while I was putting this presentation together, I thought, there just really isn't a better way to illustrate the point. There just really isn't. So let's just look at it and we'll move on very quickly. When you talk about the head terms and you talk about the high search volume and high cost terms, let's pick an industry. I don't know. Let's pick auto insurance. As an affiliate, the chances that I can be able to competitively bid on the term car insurance are very slim. I mean, if anyone's in that industry in this room, that's an expensive term. I can't make enough on that term as a search affiliate to be there. I can't. You and your internal search teams have to be there. It's a brand issue. It's a positioning issue. So even though we talk about search, and we say the internal search team is doing search, and we say the affiliate is doing search, and we say the agency is doing search, and search, and search, and everybody's doing search, when you really get down and look at it in detail, it's different search. Because you're going to be in those head terms, and you're going to cover the beginnings of the tail. And the affiliates who have no incremental cost per keyword, it doesn't cost me any more to have 10 terms or to have 10,000 terms for a merchant. So I'm going to have as many as I can, and I'm going to try and dig as far down that tail as I can with my search terms. And you know what? If I only get 3 clicks a month on a term, but 2 of them are conversions, I'm going to run that all day long. But your internal search team may not have the time, resources, or infrastructure to deal with those kinds of terms. 2 sales? Is it a lot? I don't know. Do you want to give them up? Probably not. I wouldn't. If that happens 100 times a month on 100 terms in an infinite keyword universe, it ends up being a lot of sales. So what could it look like if you wanted to run a test like this? If I were coming to somebody and saying, let's test this, let's try it out, let's see what happens. The first thing we talk about is direct linking with your display URL. If we can't come to an agreement on that, then the rest of it really doesn't make as much difference. I don't have websites. I don't have deep content sites. I don't have websites and landing pages and those sorts of things. As a search affiliate, we generate search. If I do my job, the customer never even knows I'm involved. They do their search, they find the company, they click on it, they go to the website, they buy something, great. The right to use trademark and ad copy is an important one. It's not a big issue enough to talk about it here other than this one bullet point, but it is an important issue because it's really hard to write good, effective ad copy to sell something when you can't say what you're selling. I mean, it's just the way it is. There's too many good ads that are written out there that are specific. And when I'm searching, I know, use your own experience. When you're searching and an ad is specific and an ad is generic, which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that's the closest to what you're searching for. So many companies don't allow this. Maybe you can allow it for your 1 or 2 trusted partners. The third bullet point is not a showstopper. It's not a non-starter, but it's an issue to talk about. If somebody came to me and said, listen, we'll do a test with you on 1 and 2, but 3 is just definitely out of it. Legal's involved. They're never going to go for it. My boss is never going to happen. You know, my CEO sits up at 3 a.m. and does searches on Google and just like takes screenshots of anybody that's using our keyword and sends them to me at 4 in the morning, and I have to dress them by the time I get to work at 5. We know that happens. You know, if that's just the way it is, we can talk about going forward. But I ask you to consider this. I ask you to consider the things that we talked about. Are you running 24/7, 365? Do you have a budget? How big is your keyword universe? Now, I have a merchant partner that said, Tony, I have 2.5 million keyword terms. I doubt you're going to come up with any more. I said, well, honestly, I probably would, but that overlap starts to get really small. If you're running 500 terms, 1,000 terms, 10,000 terms, even 20,000 terms, and your guys think they have everything covered, they probably don't. So what we do then is we would do an initial test and we would just run it and check for conversion. I mean, this all sounds great, but if it's not going to convert and it's not going to be a win-win, then it's not good for either of us, and it's not good for both of us. So there's really no sense to go forward and push this. So we throw this back in, we talk about the overlap, and I already covered that, and I think that point's been driven home. So let's talk about an example. Because of the non-disclosure agreements I mentioned earlier, I can't tell you who this is with. What I can tell you is this is an actual example from one of my campaigns. This is what happened, this is how it happened, and this is what we saw. Is this the only one? No. Statistically speaking, I think if I stood up here and showed you one campaign and said that's the way the world is, then that would be probably incorrect or potentially incorrect. But we've done this many, many times with many, many partners with similar results. So this just happens to be one example. This is a top company in its space. It's a name you know. I will guarantee that. It's a consumer and a business product. They have both. And they had very strong terms and conditions. No display URL. No trademark, brand, term, variation, misspellings, etc. Nothing. Must take the user to an affiliate page before directing to the merchant page. Have to do that. So I get a call one day from the affiliate manager. He says, Tony. I said, yes. He said, we need to ramp up sales. What can we do? So we've had this conversation before. We've talked about it a number of times. I don't have anywhere to send the traffic. I can't use your URL. I can't direct link. I don't have anywhere to send my traffic. I can generate the traffic. We've seen that. But I don't have anywhere to send it. He said, I'm willing to go to bat again and try for another test. I said, okay, that's fine. I said, what are you thinking? He said, tell you what, you tell me what you want to do, and I'll see how much of it I can get. Okay, fair enough. It's worth my time and effort to go and look at that. So we took a look at, and here's someone that I email with frequently, we talk on the phone frequently, and I wasn't a big player in his program. I mean, it's not as if I was the number 1 or 2 or 3 guy. It's just that we had a relationship. We had talked at conferences, we had talked about different opportunities in the past, and we built that rapport. I was in the program, sure, but we weren't doing very much. But we started talking about, okay, what's the current depth of your internal program? How far are they going? Because I need to understand that to find out if there's opportunity. Because if you share that information with me and there's no opportunity, I'm going to tell you because I don't want to waste anyone's time, yours or mine. We discovered that their PPC was based on a budget and it was coming out of marketing, And we found that their ads were being slowed or even turned off towards the end of the month as their budget was getting reached. So he said to me, how long do you want to test this? 30 days? And I said, no, you can't do it for 30 days. 30 days isn't long enough. We need to run it. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Let's run it for 90 days. Let's test. I love that word test. In this industry, everything is measurable, right? We know how many clicks we're getting. We know what our conversion rate is. We know what the sales are generating. We can track all of that information. Let's put it out there for 90 days. Let's run it. Let's see what happens. If your internal search costs go up through the roof, after 90 days, We either change what we're doing or we cut it off. I'm okay with that. I don't think it's going to happen. I firmly believe it's not going to happen, but that's what we'll do. And if it works, then you have proof of concept. Now you can go back to somebody and say, here are these guys. This is what they're doing. They're like our marketing agency on the print side or the TV side. These are guys that we trust. Here's what they're generating for us. Here's the incremental benefit. Here's what these guys bring to the table. And maybe that 90-day test becomes a permanent fixture. So in the 90-day test, we were allowed to use the display URL and direct link. We were allowed to use their trademark brand plus generics, so their term plus some string. They came up with their list of brand terms. You know, they put that statement out, no use of our brand, variations, or common misspellings, I think is how it is. But when they came right down to it, there was about 10 terms that they really considered their terms. And that was all there was. So he gave me a bid cap. He said, listen, you can bid on anything you want, but on these 10 terms, here's the max CPC you're allowed to do. Well, it was something outrageous, like $3. I mean, I don't know if we have a lot of search affiliates in the room, but I don't bid $3 on much of anything. And that bid cap was predetermined. We also, and it's not on here, but we also had a keyword removal agreement. So that if that, for some reason, they started to show, we would lower the bids on those. What did we find out after 90 days? Well, it's all up there. Their cost did not go up. Their internal search saw no change. There was no noticeable change in volume. Our sales increased 10 times what we were doing with them to what we were doing. And that's an old number because it's continued to go up. Our 90-day test is now in its 18th month. And he now calls me anytime he has a new product launch. He says, hey, we're launching a new product in 90 days and we want you to be able to do PPC for it. And we want you to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And he knows right up front that when we talk, these are what we need to put in place. This is the agreement we need to have together, and this is how we work it out. So that should have been a test at the bottom, so excuse me for the PowerPoint, but test, and test again. Now I'm going to circle back around because it's going to sound like I'm making one pitch, one statement, one comment, and that everybody should be able to fit into one envelope. And I don't believe that's true. There's no one size fits all. But there are many misconceptions. I believe that you should have strong terms and conditions. I believe you should have trusted partners. I believe you should allow those trusted partners to do some testing on direct linking and display URL. I don't believe that there's one group, including me, as a search affiliate, that can come up with the entire keyword universe. I just don't believe that that's accurate. And there's also no easy answer on the trademark terms. Yes, for my particular example, that worked out for us. And we had everyone involved. We had the affiliate manager, we had his boss, we had his boss's boss, and everybody was involved and everyone understood what was going on with the test. And I understand that if you're an affiliate manager in the room, pushing some of that up, sometimes you end up banging your head on the ceiling. So it may or may not work. But it's something to take a look at. Search can play an important role in your program. Whether you have an agency, an internal search team, a consultant, it can still play a role. Look at ways that you might be able to enhance that. Look at ways you might be able to grow that. Test some things out. If it doesn't work, you don't have to keep it going forever. Try it. 90 days. If things don't work out the way you thought, that's okay. We'll go back to doing what we were doing. We'll tweak it. We'll change it. We'll find a way to make it win-win. And if you have a good partner, they're going to want to make your side be a winning side just as much as they want their own side to be a winning side. That's all I have. That's the concept in a nutshell. I don't have anything up there for Q&A, but I will open the floor. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Question in the back? Oh. Thank you.
There reference to trusted affiliates. If we do open it up to the search with this particular ad network, we trust networks to know who are the trusted ones and who aren't the trusted ones. And could that be kind of a hairy area trying to go there when we don't have direct contact with the publisher? You have a middleman in this scenario.
That is a great question. Thank you. Let me just repeat it so everyone heard it. A merchant, he's working with a specific ad network. That specific ad network keeps their publishers anonymous. And he's asking, well, how do I determine who's a trusted partner if I don't know who my affiliates are? Wow. I have a really strong personal feeling on this, and I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you what I think. I probably wouldn't work with that network, to be honest with you. You know, I work with some of the big networks. We're in CJ as a CJ performer. We're in Google Affiliate Network as a VIP. We do stuff with LinkShare. We do a lot with ShareSale. And if you call any one of them and ask them about us, they'll be a reference for me. And that generates goodwill for me. And I wouldn't work with a network who was keeping that information secret. I think you need the term transparency in this business. I think is greatly overused, but I think there's a place for it. I think it can go too far. But in your particular case, I would want to know who my publishers are. You know, just because someone is your #1 guy generating revenue doesn't mean they're a trusted partner. So I would have the conversation with my network, the network that you're talking about. I would have it with as high up a person as I could get to, so that you're not having, you know, playing telephone, having that conversation passed along multiple times. And I would share that concern. And then I would consider shopping it around and potentially changing. Because I think you need to know who you're working with. Anyone else?
You mentioned I've been in a similar situation where you run a lot of banner boards, a lot of email, network internal search. We want to open up our campaigns to external search. You mentioned at the beginning that there's very little overlap, and that typically cost you open up to external search will not drive up your cost. From your internal search team, do you have any empirical evidence to back that up? And if so, could you provide that source to me?
The empirical evidence I have to back up that is the information I'm getting back from the people that I work with directly and what they're telling me in response to our working together. So I understand the conundrum that we're in. You know, I don't have a piece of paper that I can hold up and say, here's the stats, here's company A, and here's what happened after our test. They don't share that kind of information with me. The information that I get, because I'm working with their account managers and their affiliate managers, is that dialogue, that one-to-one, where they say, listen, you know, this is going great. Our search guys don't have a problem with it because nothing's changed. I'm doing over here, I'm doing this, and everybody's happy. You know, that's my empirical evidence. Has it worked every time? No, because it doesn't work every time. It's worked better than 90% of the time. But here's the thing. That's a big trust. And I understand it's a big leap. And I understand your question. And the point is that if you would test it for 90 days, you'll have your own empirical data. It's an investment. If it does go up, that's an investment in knowing the answer. I don't believe that that's going to happen. But then you'll have your own empirical data, and you can make your own decisions on your particular program rather than trying to take what somebody else is doing and relate it to yours. Because it could be a very different product. It could be a very different niche, a very different space. So that would be my suggestion to you. I wish I had some of this data hard and fast. Frankly, I understand that my examples here were sort of overly broad and overly generic, and I want to show you as much as I can about what we've done, and I want to talk openly about how it's worked for us. And I know in this industry, everything is very secret, and nobody wants to tell anybody how they're making any money or how they're doing what they're doing. And, you know, I'll put my hand up. I'm the same way. You know, I don't share a lot of information, but I wanted to show you as much as I could about a real example without going beyond what I'm allowed to. There's no substitute for having your own data, though.
You're the exception of PR-oriented search marketing. Is there really a need for an internal search team, or would it just be better to outsource paid search completely?
Other than for PR value, is there a good reason to have an internal search team, or is it better to just outsource all your paid search? The answer is, depends. I think making one generally broad statement about that is tough. There's financial issues. Well, if you have an internal search team, you have salaries, you have benefits, you have all those fixed costs that are there whether you're generating any incremental sales or not, on top of your PPC costs. So, is there a reason to have them? Or can I outsource it all to the affiliates where I know my cost per acquisition, my CPA is 4%, 6%, 8%? Well, you could initially just go to the answer and say, well, yes, let's just outsource the whole thing. But here's the problem, and I'll be the first one to admit this. The problem is I'm not going to bid on the terms for you that you need to be on. Let's go back to the auto insurance. You know, I'm not going to bid on car insurance because it's going to lose money. So there could be a reason for you to have that term. And that goes, I think, to your question about the PR and the branding and the positioning. So your brand is important. Your positioning is important. Being there is important. And that's what a good internal search team can do for you. Outsourcing it all, if you have the right agreement with the right person, I've seen those things work. But I've also seen many, many situations where they have their internal search team focusing on the PR, the brand, and the positioning, and they have affiliates that are generating an awful lot of business for them. And they work together hand in hand. And again, we talk about who can come up with the entire keyword universe.
Don't you think there are some terms that can be profitable for them internally that just won't be profitable for the affiliates based on the commission rates?
Will there be terms that are profitable internally that aren't profitable for the affiliate? And the answer is yes. So on top of the fact that your branding, positioning, and awareness, there could be a subset of terms that are very profitable for you to run internally that the affiliate couldn't afford to bid on. So we could even take that example and go a step further and say it's not just branding and positioning. There could be terms that are profitable for you internally, especially if, typically the affiliate manager is in charge of 3 different things. So it's not really a full salary being allocated to search.
When you're designing your ads for the keywords, what emphasis do you put on the headline versus the other copy? How much basic
The question is, what emphasis do we put on title versus the ad copy when we're writing our...
Right, title being the top line copy.
Right. I hate to keep using this, but it depends. It depends on the product, it depends on the niche, it depends on the competition, it depends on what we're focused on. Personally, and this is my own personal feeling, but personally, I believe the title carries a lot of weight with the user. And I think it does. And I use 2 specific reasons for that. I use my own experience in my searching, and a lot of times I use my mom. And I don't know if anyone else does it, but it's always the mom rule, What does my mom do when she goes and searches Google? Because sometimes we're just too close. We just know too much about what's going on under the hood. She just gets in the car and drives, and she doesn't really care how it works. But you can learn a lot by looking at what she does. Now, is that a hard and fast rule every time? Not necessarily. And there's a million ebooks and a million people that'll tell you they can help you write better PPC copy. I'm not one of those guys. I don't write them. I don't deal with them. I write the best PPC copy I can that works for the programs we're in. I personally believe that having a good headline is important. But sometimes it's equally critical to have a very strong body copy.
Is there any value in setting up a unique URL per trusted affiliate? Let's say you have 3 trusted affiliates, we have a bunch of domain names, we set up a unique URL and landing page for each individual so that we don't have rejected ads?
The question is there any value in setting up a unique URL for our trusted partners and setting up duplicate content, similar content, just different URL? That's a great question. Here's the answer. It depends. No, I'm being facetious. Here's the problem. I'll go right to the problem. And we'll talk specifically about Google because, let's face it, they generate the bulk of the traffic. Two things that happen there. Number one, somebody sets up a URL that points to the same content as their own website. Now they've created what Google considers duplicate content. That can actually hurt not only the new site you set up, but it can also hurt your own site. How does it hurt? Nobody really seems to know, because we have this black box called quality score that people will tell you they've deciphered and they'll tell you they've broken the code. Some people have speculation on what works and what doesn't work based on experience, but I've seen that happen. I have a specific example in my head where they set up a specific URL, and they actually went and visited Google at the Googleplex, and they were having conversation about how they could generate more traffic to this site they set up. And when Google found out that they had this other site, within 3 days, that site's traffic dropped by 75%. If it's unique content, then it's different. And that's the key. The question is, what if we do unique content? Unique content works if and only if. If and only if you can generate strong enough content to generate a high enough quality score to make that other site work as well as your site. When the single display URL issue came down with Google, the first thing everybody did is they rushed out to build landing pages. And a lot of them were one-page bridge pages. And there was just enough to get the user to this link and back out. I suggest to you, again, it's not a hard and fast rule, but I suggest those don't work anymore. Google cracked down on them. They thought it was thin content. It's a bridge page. The only real reason for it was to take the user from point A to point B anyway. So what we saw is we saw our click costs on those pages. Google said, sure, you can run them. It's going to cost you $10 a click, but you can run it. So, at $10 a click, you essentially shut you down. So if you can design unique content that's strong enough to stand on its own as a site, that can work. Now I'll throw one more monkey wrench out there to you, because we've started to see some of this. We've started to see some of these scenarios where this site X is promoting your product. Your site is promoting your product. And the affiliate site is only promoting your product. And it's unique content, but it's still only your product. We've seen certain specific issues where those have been considered the same site. And in those cases, it's as if I'm using your display URL. And we run right back into the example, because Google only allow one of those to show, because their reasoning behind that we understand, because we've asked the question and we understand the reasoning behind that is because it's one site marketing one product, it's really the same as your site. So we're only going to show one. Is that happening across the board? No. But those are specific things, if you want to head in the direction you're thinking about, that you need to consider. Anyone else? Going once? Oh.
I tried running that through some folks we allowed search to, and I got a tremendous amount of resistance to it, because they didn't want to be subject to me giving them a call 2 or 3 weeks into the campaign saying, you're placing a button, you have to knock that keyword set down, not use it anymore. Their point being is we're just incredible, that's the time and effort, we should be able to see it through to fruition. So as an alternative to that, we do just a keyword, the words you can't use. You're telling me though that that's somewhat of a common clause that Google set during a campaign?
Common's a tough term to use. It's common for us. And it's something that I suggest and I recommend. I'm sorry, my fault. He was asking about the keyword removal clause, and he said that he had specific merchants where he tried to put that into place, and there was heavy resistance because the affiliate said, we've put a lot of time and effort into the campaign. We don't want you calling us 3 weeks into it and saying you can't use this term anymore. And there was resistance. And is it really common? And it's common for me. It's something I recommend. Here's the issue. When we talk about the keyword removal, I'm talking about these 10 or 15 brand terms that we have the bid cap on. I'm not talking about the entire keyword universe, because that gets a little tricky. I mean, if we start running 50, 60,000 terms for a merchant and they're calling us every 3 seconds about lowering terms, that can be very cumbersome on both you and us. The idea being that these are the idea behind the keyword removal clause is that we have these brand terms and we want to cover you. We want to backfill your placement but not take up your space. So that's where I suggest we put those in place. If they're resistant to that, then frankly, maybe they're not the right people that you should be running the test with. We only have like 2 minutes, so do anyone have one more? Last one.
We had two quick ones. One is an affiliate and a publisher the same thing? And two, when you talk about keyword removal, for example, like a company like Nike, just do it. Like that would be one of the words that they would be right justified in saying.
Question is an affiliate and a publisher the same? And when I talk about keyword removal, what am I exactly talking about in terms of using an example? First off, affiliate and publisher. I'm ingrained with the word affiliate, and honestly, it bugs me because there's so many different things that mean an affiliate. But yes, in the terms of our industry, your publishers are typically the same as your affiliates. The question as far as keyword removal, I keep saying keyword removal, but I'm actually talking about bid changing rather than removal. And the question was Nike. So the question would be is if I was in the Nike program and Nike said you can bid 50 cents on the term Nike because I know I'm bidding $3, and all of a sudden my ad starts showing for Nike, that they would call me and say, listen, we've lowered our bid, we need to lower your bid cap so you're no longer showing. That's what I consider that keyword removal, meaning that we remove our ad copy from the top placement so that your brand terms continue to put you at the top so that you can continue to benefit from the brand development that you've done across all of your marketing. All right, thank you everybody. I appreciate your time, great questions, and have a great show.